Good afternoon. I'm Dr. David Rosensweet, and you've tuned into I Wonder Doctor Live, our first hour at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And this is one of my favorite times to answer your questions because we receive questions through our website, iwonderdoctor.com, through Ask the Doc. And then also, if you call in, you'll get the highest priority because it's always good to have a conversation as I learn to understand more about what your individual situation is. And that number to call in is 888-502-8886. That's 888-502-8886. And I'd like to open up by talking about one of the most common questions that I receive as a physician, a lot because of some of my special interest. And the question is, Doc, are menopause hormones safe and should I be taking them? And I want to give you the global answer, yes. And then I want to get more specific about it too, because it's the world of hormones, and hormones are about as powerful a biochemical as we can take in to our body, because our internal hormones, they are so strong. They're, for example, some of the adrenaline is a hormone that's capable of getting you ready for fight or flight. And there's legions of stories about how mobilized and strong that is. And all the ovarian hormones, the estrogen, testosterone, DHEA especially, they participate. They can augment all the energy you need for fight or flight. So one thing that's going to happen for sure for all women, and an equivalent thing for men as well, is your hormones are going to peak in your early 20s, and then they're going to decline. And there's this one special time that's really identifiable over the course of that decline. It can be as early as your late 30s, it can be into the mid-50s, but your periods cease. And once they've ceased for a year, we call that menopause. Now the hormones continue to decline. When your periods cease, the amount of estrogen you have is just not sufficient to build up a uterine lining to shed. But your hormones continue to decline, and I've tested women of all ages, and I'll tell you, women in their mid-70s, 80s, 90s, oh my goodness, these crucial hormones, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, progesterone, they are close to zero as you can get. Now the thing about declining hormones is you're going to really notice them because they're so strong. When someone gets low in B vitamins, my goodness, they get way too low. Yes, over time you're going to develop symptoms, you're not going to feel well, your health's going to decline, but you start getting declining hormones of any hormone that you can name. Thyroid hormone, the adrenal hormones, the ovarian hormones, the testicular hormones. Oh my goodness, do we feel that. But the most important thing isn't feeling it. It's what these hormones support. For example, estrogen supports arteries, supports vagina, supports cognition. It supports bones. These are so crucial. So women who get low in estrogen tend to get osteoporosis. That's not good. And then testosterone in women, I'm talking about right now, it supports muscles. And when women lose their testosterone and their DHEA, they start losing muscles, as many women has noticed when she sees flab underneath her arm, or she's not getting up out of a chair so easily, or can hardly get off the floor. That's loss of actually muscles. And you also lose the muscle that supports the pelvis, supports the bladder. So what are adult diapers called Depends and wheelchairs, canes, and walkers about? They're about muscle mass loss. So these androgens, this testosterone and DHEA, are very crucial. So there's no need to restore youthful levels, but from my perspective, one of the best things that you can do for your health technically, among many really excellent things, is as your hormones start to deplete, replenish them properly, precisely, under physicians who have really, and nurse practitioners who have really specialized in this, because to get it excellent, the body of knowledge has become big. The final thing I want to respond to is it safe? Let me put it this way. Women who are treated in menopause with bioidentical hormones have less of an incidence of breast cancer than women who go untreated. Now that's different than what you've probably heard in the popular press. I mean, my goodness, even women who are treated with horse urine-derived estrogens called Premarin, for decades, that was one of the first products on the market, they have less of an incidence of breast cancer than women who go untreated. You heard about a select and an unusual pharmaceutical medication called Prempro that had some problems with it, absolutely, and it shouldn't even ever be prescribed again. But to repeat, it's safer, just with respect to breast cancer alone, to be treated properly with bioidentical hormones than to go untreated at all. Now there's other major advantages, and I suggest you go to menopausemethod.com or go on I Wonder Doctor under the menopause section. I really love to lay down the basic information about menopause and hormones, and keep asking the question, because you'll find out for yourself. There is no prime directive for every single human being, every woman on earth about what you should do. But what I suggest is that if you take this on as an interest and you explore this topic, you're going to know what's right for you. And another resource is the book we've written on hormones and menopause. It's Happy, Healthy Hormones. It's available from you know who. And yeah, the answer is yes. Now, there's more to say about hormones and risk because you do want to get it right, but I'm not going to take the time to do this right now, but I certainly do in the book, and we certainly do in the menopause videos in I Wonder Doctor. And I want to answer some questions that have come from you. Again, the highest priority questions that I love to answer is if you call in to 888-502-8886, and I'm going to take a question here from Dina from Stamford, Connecticut. She's written in and to ask a doc at I Wonder Doctor. I now take my blood pressure regularly, parentheses, thanks to you. I took my readings from the last 3 weeks and averaged them, and it came out to 149/97. I'm doing what you said. I'm eating better. I took up meditation. I was already a regular exerciser. I live in a small, healthy house in a small, clean town. What I'm trying to say is that I have made as many lifestyle changes as I can, and my numbers are still high, parentheses, though better than they were before, in parentheses. Should I get on medications? I don't want to, but I don't want to be foolish and hurt myself by not. By the way, I'm 39. Dina, it's so wonderful to hear that you yourself were able to improve your blood pressure, and it's now better than, the readings are now better than what they were before. And yeah, 149/97, still too high. If you pay close attention, you probably can feel that. That can lead to a bit of an uncomfortable situation there. And yeah, so you've got a ways to go. I mean, even though you're 39, it took a while to get you up to 149/97, and I assume that you went higher. And one of the most important things to me is, let's uncover the specific reasons of why you have blood pressure elevation. I assert that there just isn't a situation, a health situation, an illness, where there aren't causes. And one of the things that so many physicians do is become medical detectives and try and get down to what are the causes. And I say causes because usually for any diagnosis, there's a series of things that always boil down to issues of nutrition, issues of toxicity. Yeah, big thing these days, we're exposed to so many chemicals that are not okay. Issues of exercise, too much or too little, and issues of how you respond to stress. I'm not saying stress, I'm saying how skilled can you get at actually having a beneficial, relatively calm, relatively non-fight or flight response to the stress in your life. And of course, we all are tested on this one until we get it right. Now, one of the things I'd recommend, Dina, is you've made some good changes and it's not quite where you want it to be, I would recommend seeing a physician or a nurse practitioner. Because I like, personally, to at least go through the checklist of the various things that are known to be related to blood pressure elevations. And there's various ways to test you for that, through taking a standard history and doing a physical exam and doing some special lab tests. This would be the kind of information I would like to know. I always like to know that. And you've made so many nice changes, it might be time to get the professional assessment of this, especially at the age of 39. It's coming on pretty early. And now sometimes you'll go through a workup and the doctor or nurse practitioner will scratch their heads and say, well, we really don't know any causes. Well, good, that's what you want. But you also want to go through their process, because sometimes they do turn up things that can really make a difference. When you say, and then you address those things, because everything is addressable. And then when you say that your average is 149 over 97, one of the things that I always like to look at, and I bet you the physician that you go to or the nurse practitioner is going to want to look at an actual graph or some way of recording the time of day, and start with when you wake up in the morning, lie there and take that blood pressure, and then take it 4 times throughout the day, including when you go to sleep. I always like to see a reading when you feel stressed. I always like to see a reading when you say that you feel relaxed. I always like to see a reading after eating, and I always like to see one after exercise. And rather than average those blood pressures, I like to see the details of when, for example, during the day, are you getting those elevations? Is there a pattern to that? Sometimes it's very common for people to wake up with elevated blood pressure and then have those blood pressures decline over the day. Meanwhile, prior to showing up for that first visit to a physician or nurse practitioner, have a record of, 4 to 6 recordings a day, and notate the circumstances you were under when you did take that blood pressure and your pulse. Sometimes important things can be learned. Like someone who wakes up with a morning blood pressure that's elevated and then it quiets down over the course of the day, what's going on in the middle of the night in that dream state? Could be the stress response. So it may lead you down the trail of acquiring even more information and tools to address the emotions and the fight or flight biological response that can elevate a blood pressure like that. And again, sometimes there are these unusual causes, they're not unusual to doctors and nurse practitioners, and they're actually pretty well known to many who are well educated in blood pressure, that you want them to uncover. And then, let's say that you got a totally clean bill of health from the physician or nurse practitioner. They couldn't find anything. Well, bravo. And then you start zeroing in on what further nutritional tune-ups do I need to make? Do I have any toxicity and detoxification issues to handle? And how is my exercise? Is it spot on and really supportive to me, or do I stress a little bit too much during it? Do I push myself harder than what I need to? It's every little molecule that contributes to an elevated blood pressure matters. And here's the elephant in most people's room, that they have not acquired the information and tools to respond properly to the stresses of life. And for example, when someone has a super low blood pressure and comes into the emergency room, i.e. they're in some form of shock, the physicians and nurse practitioner and nurses are going to give that person some form of injectable adrenaline. Now there's pharmaceutical forms that isn't pure adrenaline, but it acts exactly like it, because that's going to raise that blood pressure up so fast and so successfully, which means most people are capable of raising their own blood pressure up internally just by getting agitated and having an excessive response to the stress of life, where the emotions are strong. You may not even know that. Some of us have learned how to repress those emotions, so we feel fine, but our blood pressure is shooting up because there's strong emotions right underneath the surface. What I'm pointing to is, if a physician or nurse practitioner gives you a clean bill of health, like they can't find anything significant, then you want to go to do your own investigations, and maybe under the guidance of a functional medicine doctor or a holistic doctor or complementary physician, as they've often acquired the detective skills to go beyond the obvious and the ordinary. But what I really want to say, Dina, is there are reasons that blood pressure is still averaging that high, and get at them and peel them away one at a time. Would I suggest that you take medication in the meantime? Possibly. I mean, a sustained elevation that averages over 149 over 97, that means that sometimes it's higher. I would want to, every individual patient that comes to me, I zero in on their particular situation, their relationship to pharmaceuticals, if there's obvious causes. But were a patient like yourself come to me, I would go, we may want the protection of a blood pressure lowering pharmaceutical medication just to buy you time. And very often, when someone doesn't have a sustained high elevation, like above even what you have there, that it's erratic and it doesn't come but every 3 or 4 days, I'll give them a pharmaceutical medication that they're checking their blood pressure 2-3 times a day, that they take it through those episodes of blood pressure elevations, and they don't take it the rest of the time. Whereas someone else, if they had a blood pressure of 140 over 100 very frequently throughout the day, I would probably prescribe a blood pressure lowering medication and do it for a month or 3 or 6 or a year or however long it takes for you to discover and reduce and eliminate the causes of that elevated blood pressure. Because those medications will buy you more safety. They'll buy you more time. It's not beneficial to have sustained elevations of blood pressure as high as you have them. Not dangerous, but you say the average, so there must be some that were higher. So again, I would strongly consider using a medication. It'll buy you the time, it'll keep you safe, and then you figure out the causes because they're there. There's some causes in there. So Dina, great question. It not only applies to blood pressure elevations, there's a lot of different medical situations that I can think of that you're getting the symptoms, you're getting the signs, and you're taking on the process of ferreting out what are your specific causes, and you're addressing those causes. The stress stuff, how you respond to stress, that's a piece of work. To acquire the tools and get good at them, this is why having a medication can help you buy the time you need so that you can take on the project of help healing your emotions and your mind so that you're not responding deeply or obviously in a fight or flight way, in an adrenaline sort of way, a blood pressure elevating way to the stresses of your life. There it is, Dina. I can see I'm pondering one other piece of information here, that what was one of the first blood pressure lowering medications that was ever brought on and is still being used to this day, now there's many choices. It was a adrenaline blocking medication. Why? Because so commonly the reason the blood pressure goes up is a squirt of adrenaline because of an excessive response to the stress in your life. All right, Dina, best of luck to you. Call in next time because you're someone that I can think of that there'd be other questions I could ask you, and you and I could zero in on the air here to find different channels of discovery about where you could be looking and working to get that blood pressure low. All right. Here is a question from Desiree in Laramie, Wyoming. Must be getting to be a beautiful time of year up there in Laramie. Everywhere I turn online for health information, I meet up with nutritional supplements. Is this the, quote, modern day, end quote, replacement for pharmaceutical medications? It certainly looks as complicated. Well, I think that's a good question. And I meet up with this question. There's a lot of different ways to approach this. One is, I personally, with all that I know about nutrition and health, take supplements every day. Because I just wouldn't want to run the scientific experiment of not taking them. And there's a lot of reason for it. The traditional food supply is tremendously depleted of nutrients, significantly depleted of nutrients. It might look like a piece of broccoli, but it doesn't have the mineral and vitamin content that, for example, even organic food has. Organic, as if that was something special. All food was organic up until about 100 years ago when the farming methods started changing and the soils got depleted. So to take vitamins and minerals that are absent or missing or too low in conventional agribusiness food production, it makes a lot of sense because these are very crucial things, vitamins and minerals. We need them. It may look like a broccoli, but it may not have the zinc, the B complex, the magnesium, et cetera, the selenium, the vitamin D that is in a standard piece of a healthy broccoli grown on an organic farm. So the hint there is, one of my favorite things, and I've been doing it for 50 years, is I buy organic 98% of the food that we have in our house and that I purchase, and I get a lot of it in season at farmers markets. Yes, when I first started learning about the food supply and all that had been done to it, including the herbicides and the pesticides, oh my goodness gracious, I started buying organic. And so I highly encourage you to do that. Get your main nutrients out of what you're eating. Let, as someone so beautifully said, let food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. More to it than that, but it's a strong statement about the basic nutrition should be coming from the food. And then do I supplement vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and other particular supplements to address the health issues that I'm working with? Absolutely I do, because are they going to make the world of difference? Are they going to be the only thing I'm ever going to need? No, let us not be in delusion about the answer to everything on earth is nutritional supplements. No way. But, oh my goodness, they can make such a difference. And especially with people with health conditions, some of these nutrients are needed in extra rich amounts. Some people have genetic changes that they require a certain amount of extra nutrient, like folic acid, for example, a certain B vitamin. Some people have digestive issues that it doesn't matter that they're eating the perfect diet. They need to supplement digestive enzymes and also take nutritional supplements, make sure that they're getting all the nutrients. And then there's specific illness conditions that can really benefit by specific supplements, as you can see in our I Wonder Doctor store and in our I Wonder Doctor videos. For example, people who are having blood pressure elevation issues, i.e. on the road to diabetes, where they're losing control of the insulin glucose regulating mechanism, they're getting some insulin resistance, alpha-lipoic acid. Something that, yes, it's present in food, but for example, I take an extra amount of that every day just to facilitate that beautiful glucose regulating mechanism that I can, because of my genetics, I have an extra need for it. So nutritional supplements, Desiree, yeah, I'm all for it. And I just noticed the question from Gerald, who came in on Facebook, that is a compliment to yours. Your supplements are so expensive. No, thank you. Yeah, this is one of the first things I discovered in the world of nutritional supplements, which was already quite a big world 40 years ago when I started getting into supplements. I noticed that there was everything available in the world of supplements, from stuff that had the correct name, like calcium, for example, but it was almost unabsorbable, i.e. calcium carbonate. And that form of calcium is very cheap, so it's very easy to put that into a capsule or a pill, but it doesn't absorb very well. It's terrifically hard to digest. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum is this really high quality stuff, like calcium hydroxyapatite. This one is really well designed to be taken into the human body and do what it needs to be done. And the world of supplements is loaded like this. there's anywhere out there from junk to the people who really care about doing this super good job about nutritional supplements, and there's everything in between. Price can almost tell you the quality, or if you learn how to read the chemistry of the labels, you're going to get the clues there all the time. And like B12, cyanocobalamin, very cheap. Yet I wouldn't take cyanocobalamin. I want a hydroxy or a methylcobalamin. There's a far more optimal way to do it. Well, those are more expensive. And one of the things that you can often rely upon is someone in your area who's taken special interest in the world of nutritional supplements. So if you walk into your chiropractor's office and you see shelves of supplements, that chiropractor, and of course that could be a nutritionist, that could be an acupuncturist, that could be a holistic physician, a functional medicine physician, they have a special interest in nutrition and supplementation. And one thing that you can know about these folks, one of the earliest things that we all found out is who are the great companies, the great manufacturers, and who are the dogs. I mean, I love dogs. We have a dog right here. You've probably seen TJ in our videos. So I'm going to erase the word dog. You're going to see the junk out there. Great stuff, junk. Expensive stuff, less cheap stuff, and everything in between. And one of the things that you can rely on us, and I wonder, doctor, because boy, do I know a lot of great manufacturers that you can't even get, they're not even available to the public. They only sell them to professionals. And so do a lot of physicians, nurse practitioners, dietitians, nutritionists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, naturopathic physicians. One of the first things we all learn when we have that special interest in nutrition and supplementation is who are the good companies? You've got to know that. And yes, they are more costly. And over the long run, anyone who's had a health event that involves insurance, co-insurance, what the insurance doesn't cover, some of these illnesses, some of these procedures, boy, an ounce of prevention is worth 82 tons of cure. And having properly designed supplement programs and taking nutritional supplements is not the whole 9 yards. It's not everything, no. But it's an important tool that, like I said, I wouldn't dare leave out of my program with all that I know about it. So, Gerald, Desiree, and it looks complicated, Desiree, to go back to your question. And so how do we address that in any field that we work in? We either go to the professionals, the ones who have taken on the study themselves, and they've already sorted through the manufacturers. They've already learned about what supplements are best for diabetes and what supplement is best for elevated cholesterol, and what supplements are best for hypertension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of digestives are important. We can rely on their expertise, or, you take it on. I wouldn't call it complicated. I would say it's an extensive body of knowledge. And the great news is it is extensive. That means so much is known about it. My goodness, when I started off, there were little dribbles and drabbles here and there. But there wasn't nowhere near the explosion of information that's so readily available on the internet, for example, when you know your good sources. I Wonder Doctor is a great source of information about nutritional supplements, and one thing we've worked to do is get it as simple as we can so that it isn't so daunting. So at any rate, it's a world worth learning about or worth seeking professional health. And once you get your supplement program in place, you just do it. It's just not that hard. So seems big in the beginning, turns out to be learnable. And once you get it down, you get it for a long, long time, many years. All right. I have a little time left today, and I want to introduce a topic to you because it was so fascinating to me. I was listening to one of my favorite shows the other night, and they were talking about a very huge pharmaceutical company buying up a company that was known for herbicides and pesticides. They were getting acquired for billions of dollars, of course. And then the very next day, I'm talking to one of our colleagues, and he's telling me that, did you know that the incidence of colon cancer has increased by 4 times as much in this for the newest generation, and that they're actually thinking about reducing the age of the first suggested colonoscopy to 45? And I hadn't heard that. And colonoscopy, love it. It's one of these, it's technical, but oh my goodness, talk about prevention. It's so common for a gastroenterologist to see a colonic polyp that you catch it early, it's a nothing, and they remove it right then and there, and it never develops into anything rough, and you don't catch those, you just let those things grow and grow and grow for a while. They turn into colon cancer, some of those. So I love colonoscopy, and I certainly get one at the rate that my gastroenterologist suggests for me. Absolutely. Now, why would it quadruple? Well, I want to research this, and I hope to get back to you all about what I turn out, but once again, I want to use this as an opportunity to go, these things are not ultimately mysterious. There are reasons why that incidence of colon cancer is quadrupled. And it's going to come down to the same reasons that they're behind 99% of the illnesses, that because all illnesses have causes, and usually a lot of them, and it always, you've heard me say this before, if you've listened in on I Wonder Doctor before, it always comes down to issues of nutrition, ooh, toxicity, ooh, exercise, ooh, or how we respond to stress. Why I like to get you down there is because those are within reach. What you do day in and day out, hour by hour, these are the things. If you do good stuff, you get good health. If you do challenging stuff and you keep on doing it, it hurts, and it may take a decade or 5 to get you into significant trouble. So the ideal thing is become really excellent at examining that part of your life and tuning up your own nutritional situation. And if you have any toxicity and detoxification to do, get into that subject. You can do this. It's what you're going to do that's going to make the biggest difference. Just like Desiree was saying earlier, when she was applying about pharmaceutical drugs, or even Dina, that's not going to be the answer. People don't have depression because they have a Xanax deficiency, or anxiety because they have a Xanax deficiency. No, there's always causes in there. But back to the original, the colon cancer. Colon cancer has a lot to do with diet. There are places on this planet where the population doesn't get colon cancer. And what are they doing? They're eating a lot of more natural foods, and they're eating a lot of fiber. And you probably have heard this one. But it's one of the well-known causes of colon cancer is the Western diet, and all the challenges in what so many people consider to be, well, that's the usual food we eat. Yeah, well, it's usually very deficient in fiber, it's very deficient in vegetables, it's very dependent upon processed foods. So nutrition, that increased incidence of colon cancer may have some new piece about nutrition. I mean, manufactured foods, both agribusiness and restaurants, have just taken over what used to be the family table. How about toxicity? Oh yeah, and this is why I was so curious, because I hear about this huge pharmaceutical company buying up this huge herbicide and seed company. And what has the herbicide and seed company done? They produced a chemical that gets rid of weeds. And it's almost universal, used by agribusiness for soy, corn, and all kinds of different things that they grow. And what this chemical does is they spray it on the crop and it kills the weeds, and it does not kill the soy or corn. Well, gosh, poisons are strong. I mean, what kind of poison, chemical poison, does it take to kill a weed or an ant, for example, or some other kind of vermin, some kind of bugs? These things are hardy, and it takes strong chemicals to do that. Well, at first, when they were developing these herbicides and pesticides, they found that the same herbicide that killed the weeds killed the plants. So what did they do? They genetically modified the plants so that they could tolerate biochemically the poison, and thus when they sprayed the field for the herbicide, the weeds died and the plants did not. Yeah, and I tell you, one of the many things that we've learned so much about is poison. And the problem with herbicides is they're so strong, and it's molecule by molecule. It's not the kind of poison like in the old-fashioned days. You want to poison someone, I don't know much about this, but you give them arsenic, and within an hour or so they're gone. Well, these are not the way these slow poisons work. It takes a while, but our exposures are so great. So what I wanted to zero in here is there's been such drastic changes in the food supply. If I had anything that I would be investigating to see why that incidence of colon cancer quadrupled, I would look at the big stuff that's going on out there. And these chemicals are so toxic and so strong, and over the course of a year or 10 years, you wind up getting a lot of them if you're eating out of the traditional food supply. So yes, I know this is radical and strong talk, and it really means you're going to need to go to farmers markets or from your grocery store. You're going to need to lean towards purchasing organic, and you're going to say, well, I can't, and I'm going to say you should. You can, and especially when you're using farmers markets. Oh yeah, because we got to get out of this world of chemicals strong enough to kill insects and weeds, because they're just too strong. They are strong poisons, and then to have to genetically modify the seeds of the food supply, like corn and soy, for example, that is too radical to me. We do not want to be inventing, for all that I know about science, and I've cared about it for well over 50 years, we don't want to be messing with genetics in anybody, except under extremely rare circumstances. And then, of course, after a while, like happened in the world of antibiotics, the stuff that used to kill the weeds no longer killed them. Sure enough, the resistant weeds took over. And now you need something stronger to kill the new brand of weeds. And you're going to have to genetically modify the seeds once again. Well, it turns out that this new stuff, it aerosolizes, it goes up into a vapor much easier than the old stuff. That means it spreads not only to the farmer who chose to use it, but to the farmers who didn't want to have anything to do with it. So what's the solution? For consumers, it's to shift over to natural foods. And for the farming world, they're going to respond. There's more and more desire for increased natural foods with less and less chemicals. You see it advertised all over the place. You go in your supermarket and you see non-GMO stamped on the food. They know that the public is eventually going to want to shift over this. So person by person, let's make the shift. Now, I'm not saying that I know for certain that this quadrupling of the incidence of colon cancer is from what I just talked about, but it's from something, and it's something significant, and the somethings are found somewhere in the world of nutrition, toxicity, too much or too little exercise, or how successfully and we respond to the stresses in our life successfully. So, it's I Wonder Doctor, our 1 o'clock, every Thursday, Eastern Standard Time. Call in your questions or go to the I Wonder Doctor website and ask a doc any question that you have. I always enjoy answering your questions because that's what's mattering to you. So I'm Dr. David Rosensweet for I Wonder Doctor. It's an honor to do this work and to be with you.